I'd like to start with thanking NISA for offering this opportunity. It's a very august gathering. Really fortunate to get this opportunity to talk to you. Uh, we've been working in early childhood education, which is, as we define it, something before primary. So all the years from playgroup, nursery, lower KG, upper KG. So I'm going to share today a little bit about who we are, what is the opportunity of improving quality in early childhood education, why is it important, why do we need to improve that. We've done a customer survey of about 4,000 families. I'm going to share some data. In fact, in the previous session, there was some kind of requests for around this data, so maybe this data might help. And then finally, how you can work with us as we go forward on this. We believe that the markets can and should help the poor. So we definitely believe that private sector solutions can be a part of the portfolio that brings about social change. Our strength per se is understanding business and understanding the customer and then coming up with solutions that help them scale up. You have a lot of ideas in the market which you hear about, but frankly when you go back to those ideas 5 years from now, they're just restricted to हाँ वो एक गांव में कुछ तो ऐसे एक किया था किसी ने और वो we never hear of solutions which actually hit millions of people. So how can you take interventions that hit millions of people? I think if you're forced to kind of answer a question like that, most of us will probably cite microfinance as one opportunity where the private sector helped address a large scale issue. We are mission based and we are a non-profit. Most of the funding that we get is through foundations and we use that to do essentially two things. One is we do a lot of primary research in the market to understand what are the needs of the customers, what are the trade-offs that these customers are making. And our target segment is customers earning between 10 to 25,000 rupees a month. How do these people make choices? What is happening in their lives and therefore how do they choose various products and services that they buy? Because only with that understanding can you provide a solution which would work for this customer. So telling a customer, for example, I've done some work in low income housing also, telling a customer that आपको एक छोटा सा घर दे देंगे लेकिन उसमें टाइल नहीं होगी does not work. The customer actually wants the tiles because it's also an aspirational product. He'd rather have an apartment which is 6 square feet lesser but rather put tiles on it. So I'm just giving you like how people make trade-offs, which is useful when you're kind of in this business. We just don't do research, we actually take our research to action. So we work with entrepreneurs to bring these ideas to scale. So one of the areas where we've been very successful has been low income housing, getting the market for housing under 12 lakhs going. We've also created a market which has lent over 2,000 crores in housing finance to taxi drivers, to kirana shop owners, all of those people where government banks were also not lending to because they did not have income proof. Now these are very much bankable customers, they make regular money, it's just that they don't have income proof. So how do you credit assess them and how do you create a market for that? So we've done that. We've also developed some solutions for clean drinking water, safe drinking water in slums, again as a business opportunity. Like I mentioned, two focus areas, low income customer and our understanding of them, and at the same time, how can we help build a sustainable business? Because at the end of the day, if the business does not make money, no one wants to run that business. Also, if the business makes money, it scales very easily. You set up a clean drinking water plant in a slum, you make money from that, you'll set up another plant. You don't have to be told कि जाके ये और slums में भी बनाओ. It's natural for you to expand and in that way you're serving the poor. Moving on to education, early childhood education unfortunately in India hasn't got the emphasis that it requires. A lot of studies done internationally, more in the Western countries, say it is a huge impact to kind of develop the child pre-primary. Because all the key skills like socio-emotional control, executive function, etc., pre-literacy, pre-numeracy skills builds at the early childhood education. I think everyone knows that 90% of the brain develops by that age, and it's just that what is not as popularly known is that some of the key skills that are developed are the ones which are useful later on in this life. So there was a study done by scientists where someone gave a marshmallow to a kid and said, if you, एक मिठाई है, अगर आप बच्चे को बोलते हो आप ये अभी खाओगे, अगर आप 2 मिनट रुक के खाओगे तो मैं तुम्हें एक और दूंगा, तो कोई बच्चे ने तो immediately खा लिया. Some other kid said, let me wait, I'll get one more. And it was interesting, he studied the same kids 20 years later. The kids who waited for the 2 minutes did much better in life in terms of holding on to jobs, in terms of even having fewer heart attacks. And it's pretty obvious, because if you have self-control, you won't go after that extra dessert helping when you know it's not good for you. So some of these things which actually later on help in like persistence, most of us will realize that inspiration is only 1% of our job. Actually persistence and kind of working at it day and night, and like R.C. Jain sir ji said, पता नहीं चलता कि सुबह के 6 से 4 कब बज जाते हैं. It's that which leads to really impact and getting here. So those are skills which really develop at an early age. There's another nuance. A lot of the middle income families, so most people in this room would have had some sort of a good early childhood education environment at home, because probably parents, our uncles, our aunts, our grandfathers, etc., spend that time in kind of talking to us, etc. Whereas this environment is missing often in nuclear low-income families. Most families in urban India, even in the poor, are getting nuclear. There's very little opportunity to talk to the kids to bring them up. So for these kids, it's even more important कि उनकी early childhood education काफी strong हो. I'm now going to switch track and talk a little bit about the customer research. So we studied about 100 families into how they thought about early childhood education. At the same time, based on that, we then did a detailed research where we went out to 8 cities and talked to 4,300 families. And basically, what did we ask? What were their beliefs about early childhood education? What motivated parents to send their kids to early childhood education? How much they were paying? How did they consider the various options? What did parents look for? When I go and send my child to a nursery, what am I looking for? After buying that service, what do I assess? How do I assess that the quality of that education is good? And finally, how do I gather information for all this? So we asked a very detailed questionnaire of all these families. All of our data is open source. I have at the end of my presentation an email address. Just drop me a line and I can share all this. There's a 300 slide deck which talks about what are the preferences. I'm just going to talk about 2 or 3 slides today. One of the interesting findings was 79% of children from low income families. We did this survey by sending out teams in the neighborhoods. 79% of the families are sending their children to early childhood education. What was fascinating was, of the 21% that are not going are the 2-year-olds. So literally from the age of 2.5, almost early childhood education has now become the norm in India, even for low income families. What was fascinating was, where were these people getting their early childhood education? A large proportion of these were going to affordable private schools. When we started out our study, we thought that a lot of this was going to go to the chains like the Bachpans, the Hippocampuses, or some of the high-end ones like Z, etc. But what we found was most of the parents were sending their kids to schools because they did not want the hassle for a double admission. And surprise, surprise, most schools in urban India today are offering early childhood education. Almost, a good 30% are even offering like play school, nursery, lower KG, upper KG. So 4 years before primary. And it is not because this is an opportunity to make money. It is simple. Every school operates in a competitive environment, which is a 1 square kilometer area. अगर मैं ये बच्चों को 2 साल पे नहीं लूंगा, some other school will take it. I have to then fish from what is remaining. So it is becoming imperative for the APSs to kind of go low as they progress. As for parents want their kids to really perform better. That is the key motivation for sending their children to early childhood education. Education has to be good. It's a prestigious university. Proximity also played a strong part in terms of what do they expect once the children are going in. Of course, parents look at infrastructure, we all know that. In terms of the teachers, they are not very familiar about the education background. But at the EC level, how did the teacher treat you? What did the child say when he came home about the teacher? Motherly, caring, the ayahs are helpful. Those are the kind of things that people look for when they're choosing schools. This is the most fascinating slide. Across 6 dimensions, satisfaction levels of parents for early childhood education is astronomical. Mercedes would die for such statistics. And the reason is very simple. The schools are telling that your child is doing great. The schools are responding to what the parents want in a good manner, except that the parents sometimes are not demanding exactly the right things. So what is happening is, while the market is working very effectively, a lot of the elements that are being taught at the early childhood education are what we call not good EC or bad EC. A lot of rote learning is happening. ABCD is being taught, 1 to 30 is being taught. The child really doesn't know the difference between 18 and 22. 1 to 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 30. 18 bada hai ya 22 bada hai? Question mark. Because the place value is not known. The teachers are also not aware that there is a different pedagogy to use when you're addressing kids which are pre-primary. It's a lot more play-based, it's a lot more child-centric which needs to happen. And frankly, we have to accept the fact that the environment that we are in is crammed. There isn't enough space for these kids. So how can you design? So going forward, we are going to do a couple of things. We're going to, one, scan the market for all the interventions that are out there. Be it private sector, be it someone like a CLR who has done something nice with Anganwadis, or be it international interventions. We then want to sign up schools where we show them that, look, by doing this intervention, not just are you going to get better quality outcomes, but you're actually going to have a much better economic impact. The parents are going to recognize the benefits. The parents are going to come asking for your school. The brand value of your school is going to improve. And this is where I want to say that please reach out to us. We are happy to work with you. We want to partner with you. Those are my email addresses. I'll just point to Akshay, one of my colleagues. So you can drop your cards. We'll send you all the detailed on customer research if you want. Just write it on the back of your card, give it to Akshay, and please do reach out to us. Thank you.